What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Dineen, and this is my review of Friday Night Smackdown, which took place September 29th, 2023, taking place at the Golden One Center in Sacramento, California. Now, the show started off with Jimmy Uso making his way out with Solo Sikoa and the Wise Man, aka Special Counsel Paul Heyman, the Bloodline, or at least what remains for now until Roman returns. In 2 weeks' time, I believe Roman is back on SmackDown. I saw something on social media that says Roman Reigns will appear on Friday the 13th episode edition of SmackDown. So you can look forward to seeing the Tribal Chief, the head of the table, Roman Reigns, the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, returning October 13th on SmackDown. So we got 2 weeks. So anyway, back to Friday night that just took place here. They replay the events that took place on the previous episode of SmackDown during and after the Fastlane contract signing. Heyman goes on to say Cena is having transportation issues this evening. He goes on to say that Cena and Styles aren't in the building and that Styles is lying in a hospital bed. Jimmy Uso takes the mic from Paul Heyman and says, "Sacramento, the Bloodline is in your city." Jimmy says the real reason Cena isn't here tonight is because he's scared of Jim Uso. Now, this isn't the first time. It's been a couple of weeks now that Jimmy Uso is referring to himself as Jim Uso. It's going to take some getting used to. I don't know, just the last 10 plus years or however long, the Usos have been in WWE, just so used to hearing Jimmy and Jay. And it's taken me, some time the last month or two to just get used to them being separate, having singles runs on solo, on different brands. Jimmy being on SmackDown and Jay being on Raw now. So I was just getting used to that. Now I got to call him Jim Uso. I don't know if I could get used to that. But anyway, Jim Uso is how he's referring to himself these days. He then proceeds to say if Cena doesn't keep away, that he'll find himself just like AJ Styles, who unfortunately ended up in the hospital. Now, during this segment, Karl Anderson ran in and attacked both Solo Sikoa and then Jimmy Uso. Very bold, very bold. It's very rare as well to see Karl Anderson. It's been a really long time since we've seen him outside of last week when he was helping escort AJ Styles into that ambulance alongside John Cena, and his tag team partner is currently out. I believe he has had surgery recently. Luke Gallows, speedy recovery to him. I don't know the timetable as to what's up with that. So Karl Anderson yells out to them saying, "I told AJ to keep out of Bloodline business, but from what took place last week on SmackDown, that this is now OC business, and now it's personal." Solo told Jimmy, "You better handle this, or I'm going to handle this for you." Jimmy said, "Relax, I got this. Then attempted to dap up Solo. Solo wasn't having any of it. So Jimmy ended up shaking his own hand, I guess you could say. Bottom line is this. I was going to get into this later on the show, but Solo, as we all know, does not respect his older brother, Jimmy Uso. He just doesn't. He barely respects Roman Reigns these days. So I'm really looking forward to Roman returning for a number of reasons in 2 weeks, because I think he really has to restore some order in the Bloodline. It's not Paul Heyman. It's not even Solo, really. It's Jimmy Uso causing absolute utter chaos and havoc since realigning himself with the Bloodline a few weeks ago. So we got a singles match out of all this. Karl Anderson going up against Jimmy Uso, or as he likes to be referred to these days, Jim Uso. Great to see Karl Anderson again. When's the last time we really saw him on TV outside of last week in that backstage segment? It's been a really long time. Nonetheless, forget tag team action with Gallows. When's the last time we saw him in a singles bout? So anyway, we got these two going at it. And the OC, man, it's cool that they're with AJ Styles. Obviously, AJ's always going to have some kind of a notable role, prominent role, even if it's not including a title, which has happened with AJ the last couple of years. They're using him more as the veteran these days, not in title contention, really. But, the OC returned to WWE after being released 3 years ago. They returned at the Barclays Center. I was actually at the show, October 10th of last year. It's great to see them back. They got in the mix with the Judgment Day, and that was that, right? But you really haven't seen much. And I know Karl Anderson, he's still got a lot left in the tank. So they should at least utilize him in singles. Sadly, this match resulted in a semi-squash. That's really what took place here. Jimmy raked the eyes while Solo Sikoa distracted the referee. Get a super kick to Karl Anderson. Uso splash, game over. Jim Uso with the W. So again, nice to see him on the opening match of SmackDown, Karl Anderson. But it meant nothing for him. It was just another stepping stone for the Bloodline to take over and continue to dominate as they've done for weeks, months, years at this point, right? In the post-match, Jim I'm just going to call him Jim Uso. That's what he wants. That's what I'll give him. Jim and Solo attack Karl Anderson. Samoan Spike, leaving him laying in the center of that ring. Now, Mishin from the OC was making her way out to just coming out from Gorilla as they were making their way to backstage. They crossed paths. And, the Bloodline, again, they were making their way back. And Jim Uso says to Mishin, there you go. Basically, like, pick up your guy. He's laying there smack dab on the floor. And, Mishin, she slapped the living hell out of Jimmy Uso, like significantly to the point where he was knocked to the ground. So left him in disbelief. Again, Solo Sikoa, who doesn't even respect Jimmy Uso at all, he looked at his brother while he was on the floor in absolute disgust. Like, how do you let these things happen? You talk too much, and this is why things happen. What's that Little Wayne line? Real G's move in silence like lasagna, and that's exactly how Solo Sikoa moves. Jimmy Uso, not so much. So, after that whole segment had happened, and WWE's Twitter account wrote, Jimmy Uso clearly didn't see that one coming. Thank you, Mia Yim. Mishin retweeted, that was for AJ and for Karl, and more to come if you keep messing with my boys. So backstage, Kathy Kelly with Santos Escobar ahead of his United States Championship match later on in the night. Escobar says he's focused, but he has butterflies. And going up against fellow LWO member Rey Mysterio, this is a dream, but has been working on this his entire life and waiting for this opportunity, this moment, while the whole world is watching. He says, I will never give up on my dreams, and I will never stop fighting for them either. He says, Rey better be ready for the fight of his life. So this, we knew it was going to be a very good match, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But before that is to happen, we have the Grayson Waller effect with Bobby Lashley as his guest. And Waller says Cena may be the greatest of all time, but he's not the greatest at being on time. Waller's just great with words. And at this point, Cena has not arrived to the arena yet, allegedly. So again, said to had travel issues, and we weren't exactly sure as to why that happened. But anyway, he introduces his guest, a man who's done it all in WWE, but has been struggling as a talent scout, he says, Bobby Lashley. Lashley talks about having made a mistake with his pick of the Street Profits. He says, I think they don't have the will to do whatever it takes. Waller tries to sell himself on the recent pairing of himself and Austin Theory as an undefeated team as of late, but Bobby declines, and he says, I'm good, I'll pass on that one. The Street Profits, however, they made their way out in suits, as they still seemingly, at least in their mind, are aligned with one Bobby Lashley. Lashley says he doesn't want any excuses. If they want something out of him, they should go and prove it. He leaves. Profits chase after him. That was that as far as they were concerned. That whole segment for Waller didn't really go as planned. So Waller went and introduced his new buddy old pal, Austin Theory, for his match that was set to take place next. We had Austin Theory versus Cameron Grimes. I feel like we haven't seen Grimes in weeks. Again, not in any kind of a significant role on WWE programming at all. Unfortunate, because he had a hell of a run in NXT, especially going up against LA Knight 2 years ago for that $1 Million Championship, spring of 21. I know you guys remember that. So we see that Dragon Lee is in the building. He's been shown a lot as of late on Raw and SmackDown. It leads me to believe that we're going to see Dragon Lee on the main roster sometime soon, no question about it. If I had to pick a brand, most likely SmackDown. I really do. I see him fitting in well there. He's been an accomplice with Rey Mysterio the last month or so. Rey was in his corner 3 weeks ago on NXT when Dominic Mysterio was defending his North American Championship against Dragon Lee. Unfortunately, Lee didn't get it done there. He didn't get done last week, get the job done this past week on Monday Night Raw. And maybe third time's a charm. We'll see if those two ever cross paths again. But regardless, I think Dragon Lee is on his way to the main roster sooner than later. So the way this match went, again, much like Karl Anderson, unfortunately, we don't see these guys often. Karl Anderson, Cameron Grimes, matches were brief. It's all about the other guy. Theory hit Grimes with an 8-count down for the victory. Post-match, Theory gets in Dragon Lee's face, ringside, pushing him, and they have a shoving match. Back and forth, referees break them up rather quickly. And so, as far as I recall, those two are set. Yeah, those two are scheduled for a match next week on SmackDown. We have Dragon Lee yet again returning to SmackDown. Unofficial member of the roster, still technically part of NXT until further notice, but making his way to the main roster to go up against Austin Theory next week. It was also announced that the Judgment Day's Finn Balor and Damian Priest, the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions, will be, quote-unquote, taking over the Blue Brand next Friday. So we'll see what that means as well for the two of them. So hopping back into this review, we have Kayla Braxton now with the United States Champion, Rey Mysterio. Ray says, look, LWO is family. It will always be family. Ray says he grew up watching Santos Escobar's father, El Fantasma, and knows how hard Santos fought to get here, for this very moment, this title opportunity. Ray said, but be careful what you wish for. I always expect the best from my opponents, and so I bring my best too. Ray said, I'm giving you the fight of your life. May the best man win, simply put. So that match is coming up in a very short time. Prior to that, though, backstage, Jimmy Uso is seen attacking Ashante the Adonis. And then Solo Sikoa hit him with a Uranagi through a table. You have B-Fab shouting in the back. The two remaining members of Hit Row, of course, Top Dollar was let go last week in those mass releases, WWE releases. I'm not sure if they're probably not going to even fall under Hit Row anymore. It's probably just going to be Ashante and B-Fab paired up together until further notice. And Jimmy jokingly added that Ashante the Adonis will not be John Cena's partner for Fastlane, but that just goes to show you the Bloodline continue to bully this entire SmackDown roster. Jimmy Uso, Solo Sikoa running through everybody. Now here we are, United States Championship match. We have Rey Mysterio, the champion, going up against Santos Escobar. Two members here of the LWO. We have Zelina Vega ringside for this match out there to check on her boys. Now, title change or not, this 1000% should have been the main event of SmackDown. This should not have been closing out hour one. You can't tell me otherwise. Can't change my mind about it. Dare I say, this match should have been on a PLE. I'll just say because it's the one coming up next weekend. They could have saved this for Fastlane or any other pay-per-view for that matter. It's that caliber of match. You have two current stable members going at it. A dream opponent for Santos Escobar in Rey Mysterio, wanting to capture gold on the main roster. How great would it be to a mentor of sorts to finally defeat him, to get the job done, as they've had a great alliance the past 6 months or so on SmackDown or just on the main roster in general. So I don't know, man. I think, I'll just jump to the simple fact that there was no title change, right? Rey retained, but I'm still going to go through the duration of this match. But even with the retaining of the title, I still would have put this in the main event spot. I don't understand why. Anyway, we'll hop right into this now. Rey was in all black gear. LWO logo on the left side of his pant leg looked incredible. And Santos Escobar, white trunks. Again, LWO on the back. Love how they both represented LWO inspired gear. And beautiful crossbody from Rey, jumping into the midst of this match from the top rope to the outside. During the match, again, they show us Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa for some reason backstage, just showing their utter dominance, even though it was just beating up security guards. Anyway, back to the match. Rey went for the 619, was met with a super kick, a beautiful super kick, by the way, by Escobar, followed by a suicide dive from Santos, then a moonsault. So it looked like Santos was finally gaining some leverage here after a strong start by Rey Mysterio. Escobar was really getting his momentum going on here, getting that advantage. So now we're back in the ring here. Rey gets hit with a Meteora twice, but Santos was unable to put Rey away. These two throughout had several high-risk maneuvers. Rey again attempted the 619, but Escobar caught it. Third time's the charm, maybe. Rey finally completed that 619, but missed the frog splash. Now, Santos attempted the Phantom Driver, but Rey was able to turn it into a roll-up pinfall victory. Again, Rey retains. Escobar looked like he was in despair post-match, not happy. It even looked like at one point he was ready to turn on his mentor, fellow LWO member, Rey Mysterio, which is something I totally could see happening sooner than later. So Rey goes over to Escobar after, raising his title around the ring. And I said, oh, this is where I think Escobar is going to turn. They had a few words. It looked like Rey was about to extend his hand to Escobar. The handshake, I don't believe, took place. Suddenly, the Street Profits come out and attack both Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio, as they have been the past couple of weeks, getting into it with them in this seemingly heel turn for Profits joining Bobby Lashley. While this is all happening, Bobby Lashley makes his way out to the ring. Bobby knocks down Joaquin Wilde of the LWO. Cruz del Toro was taken out by the Profits in the ring. Dragon Lee wanted to help the LWO, but was prevented by security to remain, ringside in his seat. And Lashley was thrilled by this attitude and newfound, viciousness of the Street Profits. Obviously, earlier in the night from last week, he was very, very disappointed with them and losing last week, Dawkins getting pinned. And now he came out and he actually had a smile on his face. And he thinks they'll work out after all. Three of them held their hands up on the ramp, and Escobar's night went from bad to worse. He went from losing that United States Championship title match to his mentor to getting beat up afterwards. So that's unfortunate. We'll see where that leads. But again, very interesting very interesting dynamics here, right? We got Rey Mysterio, Santos Escobar. It's not finished business, at least as far as Escobar is concerned, until he wins that title. Let's be honest. Santos is really starting to show that he's feeling some type of way. It's no more happy-go-lucky smiles and hugs as it's been with him and Rey for months. And then the interesting part is Dragon Lee. Dragon Lee keeps showing up, although he's going up against Theory this coming Friday on SmackDown. He was trying to help them against the Profits. Does he eventually, come to SmackDown? Does he join the LWO? Does Dragon Lee and Santos Escobar get into it? Does Escobar try to keep Dragon Lee out of the LWO, much like Damian Priest is trying to keep JD McDonough out of Judgment Day? Finn Balor and JD McDonough have been cool for some time, and Damian Priest puts a stop to it, much like Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee have been cool for some time, but Santos wants to put a stop to it. So much like we thought Priest would be getting kicked out or leaving Judgment Day, hasn't happened yet, and I don't think it's going to happen for quite some time because they're the current tag team champions, him and Finn Balor. But back to LWO business here. Sooner than later, I could see some kind of friction definitely happening in this love triangle of sorts where, Santos leaves or LWO splits or Dragon Lee joins Rey. So just going to keep a watchful eye on that whole scenario there, but definitely something I'm curious to see. So now we had Charlotte Flair going up against Bayley. This is going to be their first meeting in 3 years. We actually got some statistics that I found thanks to Just Talk Wrestling on Twitter. And they wrote, when it comes to the 4 horsewomen in WWE, it's Bayley who leads the charge with an impressive 64.6% win rate across NXT and WWE main roster. He goes, that's 468 wins from 725 matches, and this is the 4 horsewomen in numbers. Now, again, this includes their NXT time and their WWE days. So Bayley is at number 1 with 64.6% win ratio. Next up, the man, Becky Lynch, at 60.1%. Following her, number 3, we have the Queen, Charlotte Flair, 57.1%. And then coming in at number 4, Sasha Banks, which I'm not surprised at based upon, how her booking had been throughout the course of her WWE tenure, 53.1%. So that's interesting. And, not to give the ending away for those that didn't watch, but this slightly changes a little bit, I guess you can say, because the number 3 beat the number 1. That's right. Charlotte Flair did defeat Bayley, but we're going to go over that match in just a moment. So the camera goes to the parking deck of the arena where John Cena pulls up in a Ford Mustang, blows right past the security checkpoint, ready to address the Bloodline. But before that happens, again, we get this women's match between Charlotte Flair and Bayley. But Cena's landed, he's arrived, he's parked his car, and he busted right into the building, and he's ready to settle some business, to say the least, in the quote-unquote main event spot of SmackDown. Before we get to that, though, this women's match, prior to the start of it, Charlotte says Bayley has become a stepping stone while she has become the measuring stick in WWE. She says, after I beat you tonight, I am going to challenge Io Sky for her WWE Women's Championship at Fastlane. Now, Flair did in fact get the win by hitting Bayley with the spear to come out on top. Post-match, Bayley tells Charlotte that they're going to enter. As Damage Control circles the ring, Asuka's music suddenly hits. Asuka runs out and helps Charlotte Flair. Asuka then cuts a promo in Japanese. This is where it actually gets really good. Now, from that, not that I thought Bayley understood Japanese all that well, even though she is in Damage Control with Io Sky. But anyway, Bayley claims that Asuka said she wants a triple threat match with Io and Charlotte at Fastlane next weekend and accepts it on behalf of Io Sky. Sky insists that is not what Asuka said at all. But however, it looks like the match will be taking place at Fastlane. Asuka versus Charlotte Flair versus Io Sky, taking place October 7th at Fastlane. Now, the thing about that is, here we go. I like a nice triple threat match. I really do. So here we are, 2 months and 2 days later, by the time Fastlane rolls around on October 7th. And on August 5th, at SummerSlam, we again had a women's triple threat match. At the time, Asuka was the champion, going up against Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair. Here we are again, 2 months, 2 days later at Fastlane, Io Sky being the champion now, going up again against Asuka and Charlotte Flair. Now look, all formidable opponents, a match that will probably be very good. But again, there's a lot of similarities. Not only is it a triple threat match again, not only do we have Asuka again, not only do we have Charlotte Flair again, I just wish somehow that, they were a little more creative with it. I don't have a proposal right now. I really don't. Typically I do, of what I would do. I mean, perhaps I would just take one of the opponents. I would have had Io Sky go up against Asuka. at this very moment in time. You could always incorporate Charlotte Flair at any given moment, as you see. They have no problem, no hesitating when it comes to the Queen as far as inserting her in any match, whether she's been back one night or whatever. She doesn't have to be back for any extended period of time to vie for that championship. We all know that, right? 14-time champ. So, look, I'm sure the match is going to deliver. I, for one, am just hoping that Io Sky does not lose. Nothing against Asuka, nothing against Charlotte at all. Io Sky should not lose, not just because she's had a reign of only 2 months at this point, but it really hasn't been a significant reign. It really hasn't. She's been too caught up with all the theatrics and drama with Damage Control. Again, I've said this on the previous episode of my SmackDown review. I wish Io Sky was out there doing her own thing. I wish she was far removed from Damage Control. She works best when it's just her. She's got a great look. She's amazing in the ring. She's funny on the mic. Her entrance theme and everything, she's just wild. And I love everything about her. Whether she's a babyface, whether it's a heel, that does not matter to me. But her being on her own does matter to me. So I think when all is said and done, I'm okay with this being a triple threat for the fact that it will probably be a great match. But I'm really just concerned about Io's chances obviously dropping in a triple threat match opposed to it just being a singles bout. So that's what we have for Fastlane for the women's championship match. So John Cena makes his way to the ring. Cena says he asked for a signed contract for a match against the Bloodline at Fastlane. However, the only problem is that he doesn't have a partner. He says, so tonight, it's very important. He has a choice to rip up this contract and act like none of this ever happened, or I could stand up and fight. Cena says to Sacramento, what decision do you think the guy that wears never give up over his heart will make? We all knew that Cena was not going to rip up this contract, that he was not going to bow out gracefully, and that he was, in fact, going to fight, whether he had a partner or not. That's just John Cena, right? Jimmy Uso makes his way to the ring suddenly with Solo and says, you're not making it to Fastlane. Cena calls Solo Sikoa to get into the ring, gets him on his shoulders, actually, but then gets hit with the Jimmy Uso super kick right when he was about to take him down. Again, another 2-on-1 beatdown for the longest time. Solo stops Jimmy from re-entering the ring, and as soon as Solo was making his way into the ring, suddenly, LA Knight's music hits. Makes his way to the ring, takes out both Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso. Cena gets back in the ring. LA Knight picks up the contract that lies in the center of the ring, signs it, becomes Cena's partner next weekend at Fastlane. So we have LA Knight, John Cena versus the Bloodline. You know, Cena was obviously shocked. He couldn't believe it. So he hands the contract to Cena. Cena still in disbelief, but more than okay with LA Knight answering the call. Great finish to SmackDown. You know, we were supposed to get this last week. Unfortunately, LA Knight got to the arena. They found out he had COVID, was sent home. So this was supposed to happen a week prior, but guess what? Better late than never. LA Knight, Cena, set to take on Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa. Should be a great tag team bout at Fastlane on October 7th. Now, you know, things are beginning to heat up. You know, again, even though I'm against another women's triple threat, mainly because I don't want Io to drop, you know, a pretty good, pretty solid women's triple threat match that was scheduled as of this past episode. And then we also got this tag team bout that was signed, sealed, delivered. So 2 great matches to look forward to as this card continues to build for Fastlane in just a week's time. Now, let me see here if I have anything else that I really want to discuss as far as SmackDown was concerned before we get out of here. In addition to SmackDown going off air, actually, it said they had 2 dark matches after they went off air, and John Cena battled Dominic Mysterio, and Seth Rollins battled the Intercontinental Champion, Gunther. Cena defeated Dominic, while Seth won via disqualification. Towards the end of his match, Seth also sent a shout-out to the late, great Bray Wyatt when the fans lit up the arena with their cell phone Firefly-like lights. So this isn't the first time Seth did this. Seth did this at a house show the very weekend, just a few days after Bray's initial passing a month ago. Seth was obviously, like many, a big fan of Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda as a human being as well. Still in disbelief that even occurred. Really, way too young. So that pretty much sums up things here for the Friday Night SmackDown review, September 29th, 2023. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Dineen, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.